Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby.
It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance blog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Poppy. Are you ready?
Power. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance. God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party.
It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and J. Cal.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. Of course, you might recognize DKM, but the man directly below me, well, he's somebody you should know. A longtime NWA fans do know. Mr. Billy Wood, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for the invite, and it's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to be reconnected with you guys. And even though it's midnight over here in the UK, I'm having a nice cup of tea, and I'm looking forward to this chat.
It's a conversation we do about every 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
About your time with the NWA, and of course, for those of you who are unfamiliar, in 2015, Billy started Fight Nation and joined the NWA's NWA Fight. After about a year or so of being a part of the NWA, you guys broke ties, and of course, there was from a fan's perspective, there was no real reason why the split happened, but of course, there's a lot of insider baseball talk, if you will, and I know that some things have recently come to light, so we're going to ask you about that. Of course, the maturation of Fight Nation to when you purchased IPW UK, and then later evolving that into the IWN. I would love to talk about all of that, but let's start from the beginning and let's talk about Fight Nation. And when the last time we spoke, you had mentioned that at the time when you first got interested into getting into indie wrestling, you were interested in becoming an actual wrestler. Years later, you decided to become a promoter. What brought you back into pro wrestling from the fans' perspective and training to become a wrestler to switching gears to becoming a promoter?
Yeah, so I started training, funny enough, with an NWA affiliate at the time, Hammerlock, which which was in the late 90s, early noughties. So that period there, I was training. At the same time, I was playing a lot of, like, for the English followers, I excuse this phrase, but I was playing a lot of soccer at the time. And so, as you can imagine, schedules and conflict with school, training school, and games, because I was playing at a pretty decent standard, used to clash. So I had to make a bit of a choice, and I was better at football, to be honest. So I decided to continue playing football. It is my first love, before professional wrestling. So I carried on down that path, and took a little bit of a break. Then when I kind of reconnected with people and were in a more professional environment from my profession, as I ended up being a talent agent for some of the most, well, actually now the owners of WWE. I was there for 6 years at Endeavour, but because I was in that environment, I thought, hey, look, I've got the contacts. Maybe it's time to go into promoting. And I promoted initially my first. I've actually been in the promoting wrestling game for 15 years now. So my first start was in 2008 with a company called Extreme World Wrestling. Well, they were called Extreme World Warfare in the UK, and I changed the name to Extreme World Wrestling. Had to get wrestling in the title. It was a big thing for me. And we promoted for a few years. They're still going. They're actually doing their 25th year anniversary show in my hometown this month, end of this month. So that was great. But then in 2015, I say 14 to be honest, it was 14 that the Fight Nation thing, the embryo for Fight Nation started. And with that, I was thinking about how can we be different? You know, an indie boom was happening in the UK. But how could we be a little bit different to everyone else? How could we present ourselves differently? And I started thinking about the NWA and thinking about the £10 of gold. And when the last time it was in the UK, it was years previous to that. And I thought, well, what if we use the NWA heritage and did something in the UK? That was my initial thought on it. So I reached out to the NWA. They actually had an affiliate in the UK at the time called New Breed. I think I might be wrong.
Was that the Scottish promotion?
No. There was one in England. I think it was New Breed. I can't remember, but ultimately,
I remember a New Breed.
It was New Breed. They weren't very prominent, and lovely guy who ran it. But as people would have found out when Fight Nation launched and subsequently with regards to IPW and what have you, production and standards are quite big to me, and how things look and how they're presented and what have you. And if I was going to do the NWA in the UK, the standard had to be at a certain level. So we discussed that, and it kind of, they left, we came in as the sole NWA affiliate, actually the only affiliate outside of North America at the time.
Yeah. And when that, when you finally kind of broke through the NWA, I mean, that's something that it's not unheard of. I mean, basically, Impact, TNA, that's how they legitimized themselves in that first year in business, is by associating themselves with the NWA, the £10 of gold. David Marquez famously did the same thing. He's been latched onto the NWA name on and off throughout his entire time promoting wrestling. So,
yeah, for sure.
You know, trying to associate with the brand, I think, is always a smart move, especially when there's times where that title has been very meaningful and has been in very interesting places. So when you broke through the door, you had a couple of different concepts and ideas that you wanted to try to get going in the NWA. And of course, there was a leadership change shortly after you joined the NWA. The ownership changed hands. We saw Bruce Tharp emerge as the sole proprietor of the NWA. The idea of having members and associates and affiliates faded away in lieu of licensees, and you were a part of that mix. Tell us about how that was for you going into the new ownership era.
Well, so regarding the licenses, I believe they all paid a fee.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't pay a penny. I was brought in completely free of charge. I think Bruce really liked my concepts and my ideas, and maybe just a bit of fresh impetus into what was going on. Uh, the big thing for me was, and selfishly, I'd rather be very transparent about this. I thought, well, the NWA logo has value. If
Right.
I use that in marketing, merchandise, things like that, can we create a few extra bucks that then can get pumped back into our product? So the first couple of shows, if you look on the screens or anywhere there's projectors, it's not the Fight Nation logo, it's the NWA logo. The British title was straight away the NWA British Championship. Everything was geared around National Wrestling Alliance. Even when we did regional towns, on the posters, like for example, it sounds a bit crazy, but we did it. We used to have a place called Weymouth Pavilion, which is down in the southwest of England. I remember going, into the gents' toilets to to relieve myself.
Sure.
And I looked up at the listings, and the listings it stated NWA Wrestling, not Fight Nation, NWA Wrestling. So I looked at all those things and thought to myself, there is value, but it's only as strong as the weakest link. So when I came in, I immersed myself and kind of looked at what can we do, what can we do around the brand, how can I help, how can I understand, for example, what Tony Givens is doing, what all these guys doing, and get an idea, and also immerse myself into the talent that might be in the US, or why there's restrictions on who they use. For example, financial implications. They just might not be able to budget for it, or do they just not like certain talent, or is it very regional where they only want to use their guys? So I just started reaching out to everyone, and I got to know some guys really well. Some guys were a closed shop, some were probably threatened by my methods, and I just wanted to know more. So when I joined officially, I joined in like 2014. But obviously our first show was 15. But I just used that time period to really kind of get an understanding of, okay, what is this thing now in 2015? First thought was, can I buy it? I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. Right? Can I buy this? Can I buy the NWA? And when I realized very, very quickly from doing a bit of research, it wasn't going to be that easy. But I got to know Bruce. Obviously, I got to know the rest of the guys there. James Beard, the most honourable man I think I've ever met. And I really, really like James. He was caught between a rock and a hard place in the whole thing. And just got to know people. It was a really good time in the sense of trying to establish what I was doing, but actually going, hey, look, there's this heritage brand there that really is being, in my opinion, poorly mismanaged. Can I help that, potentially own that? If not own that, have enough control over the licensing of what I'm doing to build a brand.
Well, and it's kind of funny because what you're saying, it was mismanaged and you saw the value there. Obviously, you weren't alone. Billy Corgan saw value there. I know Matt Riviera saw value there. In fact, at some point there was before Corgan came in and made his offer, there was kind of a minor bidding war with you, Riviera, and I believe a few other people who were trying to get involved. What was the process like for you when you came into, hey, is this for sale? What do I have to do to buy this? I mean, did you ever make a serious offer, and do you think it was ever seriously considered?
Yeah. Well, look, I'll rewind a little bit. So I come in, I'm starting to put on shows. Obviously, I'm sharing all my information into our promoters group. I'm doing it for two reasons. One, to highlight what people aren't doing, but two, to also go, guys, look, this is possible, and I'm happy to tell you what I'm spending or how I'm doing it. And I know it's the US, so you might not have the same people or resources locally to you, but anything I can possibly offer, then we can push it your way too. So I got to know the people, started putting on shows, started growing things. Then there was a thing with the championship belts where they were old or like they were in bad condition.
Yeah.
So I actually negotiated a deal with Leather Rebels. So he's not around anymore, from what I understand. But Peter Ellis was a belt maker, and he ended up going on to make the NXT UK title and a lot of WWE belts. So I negotiated a deal with Peter to create a new brand, a new run of NWA championships for absolutely free of charge. By the way, it didn't cost the NWA nothing, and
Wow.
the value of those belts was were well in the 5-figure range. They were top quality belts. So we negotiated it. We looked at the designs. To be fair, Bruce kind of was hands off a little bit and just let me crack on and do it. I guess because ultimately it was for free. It wasn't costing him anything. So I'll take the heat. Some of the designs were partly down to me. The ones that you didn't like.
I do have a small bit of history with that. The reason they were replacing the belts was because they had an agreement with JP Belts.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. You're right. You're right.
And he had made their last set to replace the ones, prior. And then he, like so many belt makers, started taking money and stopped producing belts.
Oh no!
Oh wow!
And so they wanted. So Bruce was looking to distance himself from them, and then when you get an offer for free belts, who's not going to take it?
Oh,
by
absolutely.
the way, he wants to send me free belts.
Yeah.
I don't let the fact that I got some scattered all over my bed and floor over here off camera in any way discourage you. Send me all the free belts you want.
Yeah. We have a standing saying here on the show: if it's free, it's for me. So send them on.
For real. Tell me about that. So I negotiated this deal to get these belts done, which obviously Bruce was like, wow, how the hell have you pulled that off, sort of thing. So I can imagine on the business side of things, it might have impressed. Let's just say, oh wow, okay, this guy's come in and he's trying to do things a little bit differently. He's creating deals. Okay, cool. So I did that. Then I was digging out where the championships are, what's going on with them. I was saying, look, who's creating any interest in the brand? Why are we not creating content? I just couldn't get my head around having X amount of affiliates and no content, like regular content to be shared to NWA enthusiasts. It just didn't make any sense to me. So I'll be like, look, I'll take the footage, I'll get my guys to edit a show, like whatever, it's fine, we'll do it. Oh no, we're talking to TV channels. We're talking. Okay, cool. You do you. So, long story short, after a period of time, I was getting more and more under the, in the brand. Me and Bruce were literally talking pretty much we were definitely talking every day. Like at some points I would be going for dog walks and I'd be on the phone to Bruce and just chatting away about ideas and this and that and who to put the belt on, but it always kind of led to him in Japan, which was a real common theme. But I would, and I think he appreciated. I cut through all the bullshit. Sorry, can I swear on here? By the way,
yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
We're on YouTube, so no gratuitous cussing, but
Yeah,
bullshit.
no, I'm a good guy, really. So there won't be any of that. So I kind of went down this line and got really into it. And I was in LA for a company retreat with Endeavor, where I was an exec there at the time, around this period. And I looked at the brand and thought to myself, this is what it can be. This is, can we have an NWA facility? It doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to be NXT Performance Center levels. It just needed to be, can we have somewhere for talent to go? Can we find somewhere to record footage? There must be a studio. Could we go to OVW? Like, there are places that you could do things. So I come up with an idea, and rather than bore you and go through the absolute intricacies of it,
We don't mind
but I
being
worked
bored.
out a
That sounds
financial model
interesting.
where we could shoot. Okay, well, it was a financial model to have a weekly show. So it wouldn't be 52 weeks of the year. It would be series. So you'd have a break in between. You'd have your specials and what have you as well. But also to not alienate your licensees, because I felt there was a value to having licensees. You would have a show called NWA Underground, which would be your licensees that weren't up to the production level that you needed for the main show. So NWA Underground would highlight territories and the next big names coming from those areas of the States, Europe, Japan, wherever, and they would highlight, and then you would see NWA Underground talent then make it onto the weekly series. The idea wasn't power; it was, you know, it was something else. But the idea was to create something, you know, with stars. So you had names, then you had some up and comers, and kind of try and put the bigger belts on names, not because to mark out anything, but to actually, for me, to highlight what we're doing. So if X is wearing the belt, then it's going to get eyeballs on a product. And no disrespect to him at all, because I really love the guy, and I think some of the stuff he's done in the last couple of years has been great. Like Jack Stane at the time, no one was talking about Jack Stane. So for me, it felt like it was too early for Jack Stane to be an NWA World Champion. Now, that was my opinion. But my opinion was, well, is he ready? If not, why couldn't he be a national champion or a North American champion? And then you have an established name. Just to get the NWA the NWA out the slump, because it felt like it was in a bit of a slump. And I just thought, if you have names on it, you're getting eyeballs, and then you can then use that to cater things around, especially if the production's a certain level and you have an idea for it. So all these things were flying around my head. I flew to LA for my company retreat. We went down to San Diego for that. I then left my retreat to go to Texas to meet with Bruce, James Beard, and there was two other guys there. One of them was from PWI, right? The name escapes me. If you said a name, it probably was him, but the name completely escapes me. It was one of the writers for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, but he was in this meeting, so he could 1,000,000% validate what I'm saying. And we sat around a boardroom table in this hotel, and in Houston, I believe it was Houston. I've got pictures on my phone, so it must be. I posted one of them up. And we sat around and debated all day, and there was a bit of resistance what I was saying, because it felt like pretty to them was I was explaining, well, in Europe, I've got this, and this. So if we need to move things to Europe, we can move things to Europe, because we've got these things just to shoot. Wherever you could shoot it anywhere in the world,
right?
It doesn't really matter. But I'm saying I've got all these things available. I could probably get a promoter to pay X amount of money to go and do this really big relaunch. I don't know if anyone saw the graphic, the renaissance of the NWA graphic that was out there, right? So all this stuff was created because we were going down this route. This was not off the table. So we're talking about all this stuff, and Bruce goes, "Well, what do you want?" I said, "Well, I'm going to invest money into this, or bring promoters into this to invest. You own the NWA. There's two options. You don't want to sell it, so license the full NWA to myself and take a profit, like take a profit split with me. So I will ultimately run this brand. You take X amount of profit, and that's the way we work it. And hey, in 10 years' time, you decide that you want it back because I've done a great job, take it, because it's the people that make these things. Not like you can't just take a great brand and be good at it because it's great. So if, with all due respect, Bruce Tharp took the WWE tomorrow and not Endeavor, I question where the WWE would go. You know, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't want to get sued by Bruce for saying that, but at the same time, I would question if it go up or go down. That's the one, yeah. So with this, I was ready to go. We went out for dinner that night. We had a great evening. We went to a Japanese restaurant, shock, where Bruce ordered his favorite beers, and we had a great night, to be fair. And then the next day, me, Bruce, and Matt, and we discussed, well, what's your role? What do you want to be? I said, well, carry on being the president. Doesn't bother me. I'll just run it as a chief exec or a COO or vice president. Doesn't really bother me. But to do this, I do need the control to be able to be authoritative enough to kick the promotions up the arse that are in the NWA, to bring standards up, so everyone has the same ring rope color, everyone has the same branding, like everything has to fall into house. And if it doesn't, that's fine. Don't be part of it. But to be part of a prestigious brand, you're franchising the 3 letters, right? You can't have a McDonald's in New York that looks completely different to a McDonald's in Kentucky, let's just say, right? Not Kentucky Fried Chicken, but Kentucky the area. So for me, it was a case of we need to get this franchise actually franchised. So it was all good. It seemed like we were going to go ahead. I then flew back to LA, which is probably the biggest mistake. So I flew back to LA. I got back to the hotel. I've got all these ideas flowing in my brain. I'm writing them all down for him, and we're going back and watching that.
Always a mistake.
True. I love Hollywood, but at this time it's probably the wrong thing to do. So I've gone into this big meeting, and yeah, we're ready to rock and roll. So I'm writing all these ideas down on what we can do, what we shouldn't do, what we need to get rid of, and what have you. And Bruce is very receptive at the time, but his thoughts are there, like, oh, I've got this guy called David Fuller who wants to put on a WrestleMania weekend show. I went, all right, okay, that's interesting, but is it going to draw? Like who's going to be on it? So I'm thinking, well, hold on a minute. We're talking about all this stuff, and now you're talking about Parade of Champions. Like we've got to rein this in somehow. I'm looking for ideas. I've got a Sunday off, and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has a tape in. Jim, what was the theatre called, Jay, that used to tape in?
The Ocean View Pavilion in Port Wayne,
which is a bit of a drive, right?
It's not a short drive at all.
No,
not
no.
From Hollywood, not from anywhere.
I jump into my rental car and I'm driving wrong side of the road, petrified. I get there, park up in a car park opposite, wonder if my car's going to still be there afterwards, and I go to watch this show.
Did you buy any oranges or avocados on the way in?
No, do you know what did I get? I got a really bad hot dog. Don't tell Dave. But I get into the show, and it was the Percy Pringle Cup taping that year, PP3 Cup, and like Rocky Romero. It was for me. It was a really decent show. So, for example, just looking at how they shot, how they stopped things, how they edited it, then watching back some of the stuff online afterwards, I was like, right, we can use this. We can use this for the NWA. That was my feeling on it. We can use this stuff. So I've gone away from that, not knowing. I knew Marquez was part of the old NWA, but I didn't know the legality situation, right? So I'm like buzzing, thinking, right, I think I found the formula. Studio television, we need to do it. So I'm like, Bruce, I have just been down to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. It's amazing. And yeah, it was, well, I don't really get on with him. And then it gave me some of the legal talk, and I just kind of ignored that. I just wanted to know more about how Dave Marquez does what he does. So I kind of reached out and said, look, I just want to get to know. I want a better understanding. I look at myself. If I don't know, I want to be a student. I want to find things out. I want to dive in. I want to understand. So I did. At the same time, we had this Parade of Champions thing for WrestleMania weekend, And I said, look, I'm happy to go in halves on that. If I'm going to do this big NWA kind of rebrand and change, then I should really be involved in this. And all the belts made at the time, they're all at mine. I'm asking for shipping addresses. Like, it took, they didn't actually get sent out for months, by the way. I had the belt sitting in one of my spare rooms for about 4 months.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, just sitting there. To the point, the NWA British title, actually, I had it on shows. Then it got changed from that to the Fight Nation British title with the same design before the belts even went out. So that tells you how long they sat there for. And
yeah, they got them right after the Parade of Champions.
Yeah, exactly. And they were made before Christmas. Right. So it's a long time. So going into that show, from my background, I'm like, look, I need the costings. I need to know how much everything is. What's the rent on the building? Who are we booking? How much are they going to cost? All these things. And I wasn't getting enough answers from David Fuller, and he was quite guarded. It all transpired. There was a bit of playing off two parties against each other. So I don't blame David Fuller for that at all. But he was probably got his guard up. I think he was promised certain things by the NWA as well, that he thought doing this show was going to push his standing up and he was going to be a top dog in the NWA or whatever. So this tension started happening. And I was like, Bruce, I can't work like this. I can't fund the show when I'm getting asked for money, but I don't know what the money's for. I've not seen a marketing budget. I can't do this. It doesn't work for me. And then it got to the rounds of some of the championships. And I was like, look, you got look, speaking out here was a massive thing. I'm sure it was in the US as well. So any names I'm mentioning now was prior to this.
Right.
But at the time, Marty Scurll just won Battle of Los Angeles. He just won that. He was obviously getting into Ring of Honor New Japan. And I said,
he was a big deal. He was a huge deal.
I said, he will wrestle on that show. I've already asked him. He will do that show for you. Put the junior title on him. Like, that'd be massive for you guys. Be a great moment for WrestleMania weekend. Yeah, great. And then it got closer and closer. Marty's like, Marty's asking if he's booked. Like, he's doing it for me cheap. Like, this is a mate's rate. Like, what we're gonna do here? And it just kind of like
title had already been promised to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, it just become an absolute mess. And I just pulled out. Said I'm not doing this.
The title was, I can't remember who. The title was promised to somebody else. He eventually won it, but then he couldn't even make the show, so they substituted a local guy in as the challenger, and they actually put on a hell of a good match. I was there for that show.
Oh yeah,
and everything. But yeah, there was a lot of consternation because every NWA title was defended and not one changed hands.
Yeah,
and one was supposed to.
And so that happened. I pulled out of the promoting of that show, which obviously, as you can imagine, caused a few ripples. But I was happy to pay for things, but you can't go in blind. And every time I was asking, well, how are you marketing this show? I was told it's not your area. You don't know how to market in this area. I went, no, but I want to know what you're doing. Like, I don't care if I don't know what streets you're postering. I just want to know what you're doing and how much is being spent. So that was a real issue for me. And when I pulled out, I said, look, I can't do this. I've already suggested that we should have Cody Rhodes as a champion. He just wrote a list. His dad's Dusty Rhodes. The NWA World Heavyweight Championship is his destiny. That should be everything that you put into. We should be going to Cody and going, hey, Cody, here's 25 dates for X amount of dollars. These are the big shows that we're going to do where we can afford X amount, and everyone else gets in for really, really cheap based on the bulk deal. And it would boost all the regionals because they have a hot free agent on their show, and it would boost the NWA Championship because, let's be real, Cody would have pushed it to the moon and taken it to Japan, taken it to Ring of Honor. It would have been everywhere way earlier than that actually happened.
Yeah.
So all these things of grandeur and pushing the brand up, suddenly, because I wouldn't blindly give money, become an issue. Or Billy wants to take the championships to England. I was like, well, no, that's not where they have value. They have value in the States, but we need to make them global. So like the European tour, I had some big, I'm not going to say the names of the promotion companies, but the big companies that you would know about. So the NWA Europe tour was all about, for me, two things: establishing the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship and the champion over here. And a period where independent wrestling was hot, where TNA at the time was still doing arenas in the UK, like not papered. They were doing huge numbers in arenas. And ultimately I thought, right, okay, if we had the right champions, the right production, and we had the right budget. So for example, we were being offered anywhere between $10,000 to $25,000 a show to put on in Europe. Okay, so 10 shows, a lot of money, right? A lot of bank that we could then put into production, either for those shows or for shows in the States or for talent. Like, there was six figures there. And I'm telling you this, the NWA probably never made six figures in any of the years that Bruce Favre had it.
It might not be
That's
making
what
six figures now. Hey,
No,
Billy,
probably not.
when that plan that you had for Europe, what was your contingency? Like who was going to be the champion? If everything went your way and they said, you know what, Billy, you're right, this is an opportunity for us to not only grow the brand but actually create some positive positive money for the brand. Who would it have been? Cody? Was that your idea of Cody carrying the world heavyweight title and
Yeah.
the villain Marty holding the junior heavyweight title?
That was the plan for the two major titles. Women's, like, Jazz was around in a mixed in, which I thought was great, because then you can make up a young babyface challenger to then go and take the world title, the Wild Women's title, that is. Tags, I was all game for really going into the markets and finding really good tag teams. Obviously, you had obviously like the Young Bucks and what have you around then, but the idea was to find a more NWA, do NWA Underground, a mass tournament, and then have that tournament, then make it onto a major show, and actually just spend time really building up the characters again that were supplemented by. So if you had a roster of, let's just say, 25 talents, 7 to 8 of those were bigger names, and the rest were ones that will become NWA guys. And the whole point was, for me, was give credence to the NWA, but actually NWA become the conveyor belt for the WWE. So you then got the history to then go, oh, for example, now, and we'll talk about what I did afterwards, but Pretty Deadly on WWE at the moment, right? For me, that's great, because that was a tag team that effectively was put together under my watch, and I've got all their matches from their UK run. And when they do good things in WWE, hey, what do? We talk about Pretty Deadly, right? So you have to understand that you're not the number one, and respect that and understand that, but use the heritage and the legacy that you're creating to create more legacy. You want to be able to create those. You don't want to keep going Harley Race, Ric Flair. You want to then go with this person, that person. When Cody Rhodes goes and headlines WrestleMania, you want to go Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is headlining WrestleMania this weekend. Watch his 25 defenses of the NWA World Championship from all around the world on here, YouTube, on demand, wherever it was.
So
that for me was the thing. Understand where you are in the ecosystem.
I know that you said earlier on you're very transparent, and so like these are the things that pop into my head, because everything you're saying sounds like amazing to me. It's like, shit, they could do this right now. But like the idea of the underground, I mean, they have territories. They've announced one. They're going to be announcing the second one very soon, I believe, maybe even a third. that sounds like a great idea to steal exactly what you said and do that themselves.
Yeah.
But to the other point where, so you get Cody, and obviously Cody's a guy that you could have short term, but he's not somebody you can keep long term. And the same thing with Marty. At that time, his trajectory was through the roof. What did you have an exit strategy? Like, okay, we're gonna put the belt on Cody. We got him for 25 dates. We're gonna build up a challenge to take it off. I mean, did you have someone in mind to dethrone Cody? Did you have someone in mind to dethrone Marty, or was this just like a, hey, let's get the belt on him, let's get some recognition on the NWA, and we'll figure it out when we get there?
The truth is no. So there was obviously talent at the time. If I think back, I would have thought about 400 different champions for each belt. I would have gone, oh, what if we do this? What if we do that? You know, there was a UK guy called Mark Haskins who I thought would be a great junior champion as well. He obviously was an Impact, then went on to Ring of Honor. Obviously left after the pandemic, and when Ring of Honor was brought by obviously Tony Khan, so he was gone. But there was young talents coming through stateside too. So it was about having your finger on a pulse, and I think that's another thing. You can plan all you want to make someone your next, but the market dictates. If you've got your finger on the pulse, you can't just do things because you want to do them. And there's so many promoters in wrestling that do things because they want to do it, right? It's not about you as the promoter.
Right.
It's about your audience. And it's about how you so what is your brand? How do you perceive your brand? How do you want your brand to be perceived? How does your brand, the perception of a brand, gain more attention and grow? Okay, those are the things. So who is next, or what is next? What's the next show? What's the next narrative? How do you then build into that? What's the payoff? Where are you going with this? So I think it's easy to have, oh, I want this person to be the champ, but I actually think the market dictates that. So I had a guy who wrestled for me for 4 years, and I could have never imagined this guy ended up being my main champion when he first came in. Never would have imagined it. But he was a heel, and the reactions to him were changing, which made us make him a face. And then he become arguably the biggest babyface in the He wasn't the best wrestler by far, and he never made it to WWE or AEW like a lot of my ex-talents. He never did. But when his music hit, the crowd went crazy, and he was probably our best merch seller and was absolutely loved by audience. But if we didn't have our finger on the pulse with him, we would have ignored that for the next indie darling, or we would have ignored that because, oh, we've hired another WWE babyface as such, or big name. You know, it's you have to consistently, daily, just have an understanding of what's going on and what's working with your audience.
So then I guess lesson learned, you had this very like gigantic idea, strategy for the NWA. Didn't materialize. Obviously, there were some cold feet on the other side of the Atlantic. Then the trigger never got pulled, and then you just kind of started doing your own thing with the Fight Nation. Went back to the roots, and then you even had David Marquez and a few of the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood talent appear on some of those shows for Fight Nation back in the UK. Tell us about that process and the working with Dave and how that all came about.
So working with Dave was simple. I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand the production side of things better. I wanted to get a different perspective, because I'm also under the impression that because I think it's right doesn't mean it's right. But understanding everyone else's different ways of working, I think you can kind of better yourself. Like even today, there's younger, like cooler promoters that have come in that do things differently to me, and I want to learn from them too, and I want to understand why they do the things that they do. I don't want to sit there and go, oh, I've been doing this for 15 years, I know better than you. I continually want to learn. I never want to stop. So the thing with Dave was he was very open to teaching. He's he's vision for things. So we met a few times every time because I spent a lot of time in LA because of my job. So I would fly in a lot and we'd go out for lunch, we'd go out for dinner, I'd meet the guys, whether it's Nick, who's now working for WWE as a script writer for NXT.
Yeah.
Or, his crew, like Billy, is it Billy Trask or Billy Trask?
Billy Trask, yeah.
He's now killing it for as a production guy too. Like getting to know these people was great, but I am an old NWA fan, right? So there's a reason why I was drawn to the NWA, and I love I love studio wrestling, and I love the idea of not controlling an audience, but controlling an audience, like a TV audience, right? So not just telling them when to boo or cheer, but creating an environment that they understand why they're there, right? And what I loved about having Dave Marquez in was the UK guys had never worked TV style. So this was before NXT UK.
Right.
And they always wanted to work to the crowd, right? And our tapings we did, which was with Fight, called Fight on Fight. You can still find them. I think the first 4 episodes are still on Fight now for free. So if anyone wants to check them out, they can. They're there. And we had the audience all one side, very similar to Hollywood, all one side, and obviously Power years later. And we conditioned the guys to work the hard cam, to understand that yes, you've got a few hundred people behind you, but it's the potential thousands, hundreds of thousands, if we're lucky, millions that potentially could watch through the lens that we want you to capture. Because these guys behind are here on the ride already, and they're going to be part of the ride. They're going to react because you're freaking good. I need to swore bad there. You're freaking good, right? So trust us. And it was a process, and there was a lot of talent on those episodes. If they're watched back, that now are on WWE or were NXT UK guys who actually credited. So there's a guy called Sid Scala who is an incredible trainer now here in the UK, and he was the mouthpiece for NXT UK with Johnny Same, and he credits those early days of the Fight Nation stuff we did for him to understand studio or TV wrestling in the sense of working to the hard cam and using that experience. So it was great fun, and we that's the one. So we had a great time. Dave come over. He gave some tips. He helped my producer at the time, Mark Shuttle, who now is full time in Germany for WXW, which is obviously one of the biggest European promoters. He's their lead. He looks after all their production. He's like the exec producer for them, and it was a great learning. We all were under the learning tree for that particular concept and idea, and it was great for us. It was great. So that's how we ended up working with him. I then flew in and out, worked with ZCW as well at the time, later on as well, and yeah, it was no financial gain for either party. It was just two people that really, he wanted to get an idea of the UK market. I think I wanted to understand production better, so it just worked for both of us. And I thank him massively and his team, immensely, for the experience they gave me.
2 quick questions.
Sure.
Did you ever officially become or be a part of UWN?
Yes.
Wrestling Network.
Yeah, we did, very loosely, but we were part of it. Yeah.
And then second, are you watching Power currently? Do you see any of the NWA shows?
Yes.
What do you think of how they set up the thing where the hard cam and the camera are on the same side and you don't see the audience?
I hate it.
Okay.
Hate it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we didn't accidentally lose you.
We're
No.
we're all in agreement with that. I don't quite understand why they chose to remove the audience. Now, I was at the last season of the TV tapings. I was there on both nights, and it does look a lot more polished. I feel like this environment looks really good, but I hate the fact that you can't see the fans. I think that,
But
for
Jay,
some
how
people,
many people were there?
there was probably look, I'm not going to lie. There's probably 100 to 120 people, I mean, there was
Were you on bleachers or were you on the floor?
on the floor.
So that's probably why then.
Yeah.
So it probably wouldn't look
No,
great.
it wouldn't look good, but that's the thing. You could have had it wouldn't look good on TV because there wasn't like 1,000 people there or 250 people there, but there was enough people that you could have, like you said, if they did bring in a set of bleachers, it would have looked all right, but just
That's
everyone's
the
sitting on the
thing.
floor.
This is the one thing I learned from Dave. You can make 50 people look good.
Right.
With the right seating, you genuinely can, because we had that with that Fight Network. So like we had gaps, but when you actually you kind of captured the screen and you brought it in a little bit and and didn't make it so wide, it looked incredible. Just having 4 or 5 rows of seats and you can only see 50 people. We had more there, don't get me wrong, but to see that and
Right.
and you don't see an empty seat and it's zoomed in and it feels good. Great. Like, to not have an audience tells the audience at home that no one's there. And why do you need to give a shit if no one's there?
Let me
So
ask you another question, because this is something I thought of while we were talking. How much of your vision, what you saw that you could have done with the NWA, how does that compare to what the NWA is currently? So, like, your idea was that they would tour the UK at least for a couple of weeks or so. You had
yeah.
an idea of them having like a studio environment TV show. When you look at the NWA now, in the last year, they have done more live events this year than they have in the previous 2 years. Obviously, COVID stopped things, but even in the active years, going back to 2019 and the first part of 2020, 2023 tops it all. And by William Patrick Corgan being able to incorporate the whole rock and wrestling fad from the 80s, reinvented it in 2023 by bringing the NWA to Australia, the NWA to Mexico. I mean, how close was that in line with what you had envisioned for what would have been your NWA?
Nowhere near. And it's not a knock on what they're doing, okay? Because when NWA Power came about, I got the nostalgic kind of nod, and like the ads were like from the 80s and that feel, and everything felt old school, right?
Yeah.
The issue with that for me was, at some point that's going to get boring. At some point you can't carry that into the future. Because nostalgia is great, but if you're nostalgia every week, then how do you move the product forward? You kind of can't, right? So studio wrestling, absolutely. It had all the markings of Marquez, Lagana all over it, and it was great. And that and I felt, right, the format's good, the length of the show's good, we're getting characters over, we're investing time into them. This is great. It just lost its way massively, in my opinion. I saw the last show, and the James Mitchell spot in the crowd, like, I'm going to say this, and this might blow up in my face and might cause a massive spat, or I might be told I'm irrelevant. I've got no relevancy, so why am I saying this? But it's an absolute disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace to wrestling. It's a disgrace to the business. It's a disgrace to the fan base. It alienates anyone that is anti that. It alienates kids. It kills everything. And it's not funny because, we're not on YouTube. We can do this because we're a pay-per-view. I'm not buying that. That's rubbish. Like, it's not. So you're telling your audience it's cool to take Class A drugs.
Yeah.
You're really great. Well done.
I you're not alone in your sentiment. In fact, we have a very vocal fan base. There's people chatting in this video right now on YouTube, and they're talking. Well, they're not talking about that yet, but they will probably in a few minutes. We also have a Discord where a lot of us are like, "What the hell are you doing?" Especially because the rumor, and I know this is about you, but the other rumor is, or the other Billy is rumored to be working out a deal with a major network here in the United States, a top 20 cable network. And in what world is that okay?
Yeah, but Jay, there's a difference. There's a massive difference, and the reason why. Okay, and I'm gonna give two opinions on it. One, and I want to throw this into. He's a multi-millionaire, right?
Yeah.
A multi-millionaire who is throwing money at this because he can.
Yeah.
No worries, James. I'm more than happy to do that. He's a multi-millionaire who is throwing his own money at things and will do whatever he wants. And this is what it comes to my thing of being a promoter to promote for the audience, or being a promoter to promote for yourself. That is self-indulgent, and it's not right. But he doesn't care because he can get away with it. Now, I think it's ignorance because he's in a massive rock band and can sell out arenas as a Smashing Pumpkins. So I can do what I want. I'm Billy Corgan. I can. Who gives a shit what people think? If they don't like it, they don't have to watch it. They can go and watch WWE. They can go and do this. Like, for me, it's insulting, that part of things. And I think if that's where he wants to take this NWA, because I don't know, back in the 70s and 80s, these guys used to be up late night partying and doing all sorts of drugs. No one cares about that. No one cares. Doesn't sell any more tickets at all. Watching an old geezer in the back dishing out cocaine to a bunch of workers. It's awful. And it's embarrassing for James Mitchell too, because you know what? The Sinister Minister gimmick as a manager of like Abyss was different and cool, and actually can still be relevant today because of his stature, right? But that, what does that have to do with wrestling? Like, for me, he's gone for shock value because he thinks he's going to get more eyeballs on the product. Someone's just done some shock value here in a different way. So a promotion up in Manchester just announced a former 90s soap star is going to be at their show for no reason whatsoever, no build. It's just going to appear, and it's got in all the local rags, and it's clickbait, and it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And to them, they might see that as an amazing thing because, oh wow, suddenly we've got 300 likes on the Twitter post.
Yeah.
We only normally get 50. Look at it. We've done great business. But that's not getting wrestling over. Like the same, this drug spot isn't getting wrestling over. And I feel like some people find it so hard to get wrestling over that they resort to these things because they can't get wrestling over. Because actually it's tough. It's tough to come up with engaging storylines. It's tough to be consistent. I've struggled with it myself. I've not always been consistent. That's why I took a break. That's why I burnt out, because it is tough. But yeah, that I can't. The NWA, some things in the early days of the one brand launch was great. Some of the decisions with regards to, I don't know, champions and what have you, that's up for debate. Whether Tyrus was the right guy, political views, whatever. That's fine. If people don't like that or do like that, that's up to them. But it's more the arrogance with decisions. It's like, I'm doing this whether you like it or not. But it's not. But Billy, it's not for you, unless you don't care about ticket sales or you don't care how many people buy the pay-per-view. And I might be completely wrong, and he might have had the best buy rate ever for an NWA pay-per-view for this last show. I might be wrong, but for me, it feels indulgent for the wrong reasons.
And everything that you just said, I have said on this podcast before, and lots of times. And fact, we had somebody in the chat who is a really big Smashing Pumpkins fan, and they're like, "Why do you even watch the show? It sounds like you just hate everything." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. It's a really good show, and there's a lot of things that I love about it, but they just miss a few things. And I feel like if it was more for the fan, that fans would enjoy it more. But let me just take the opposite approach, and this is what I've been told by people surrounding Billy, people who've worked with Billy, and it kind of you gotta. You and I aren't rock stars, and I know
No.
you've had a lot of highs. I know your career wise, you've done a lot of amazing things. Some things things I'll never be able to accomplish, but like there's something about a rock star who has the opportunity to do what he wants to do. You said self-indulgent, but his whole thing is ever since he's been producing music since 1993, 1992, maybe even before then, is that he did it his way, and he went against the grain, and he went against what people told him. And his whole thing was, if I listened to what you told me back then, I would never be where I am now. And I feel like he's got that same approach for wrestling. And you and I are on the same page here. I think I would argue, like, look, wrestling is not, rock music. There's similar elements, sure, but like there has to be some sort of with music, and I love music. Music is to entertain and delight me. Wrestling, we actively have to suspend our beliefs about reality to enjoy pro wrestling. The fact that a guy puts face paint on his face and shakes the ropes, and we're supposed to believe that this is some sort of demigod in the ring, we have to suspend belief and believe that. But like rock music or any kind of music that just speaks to you, you just put it on and listen to it and you enjoy it. And so like I feel like there has to be some sort of pact with the audience and the promoter, the content maker, that there has to be an agreement, like, hey, this is reasonable to me. This kind of wrestling is something that I'm going to enjoy. And like you said, when it becomes very self-indulgent, it kind of takes it takes away the opportunity for me to have enjoyment in it, because it's not for me. It's not.
I would also argue the fact that was 1990, 1991, 1992.
Yeah.
Right? It's 30 years later. He's got, like, the world's moved on.
Yeah.
His idea of rebellion might not actually stand up now, regardless of how in tune he is as a musician and what have you. Like, we all get older. And our ideas aren't as relevant to an audience as they once were. Whether we like that or not. Let's be real. Smashing Pumpkins fans. Sorry, DK.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done talking, but I was just saying, in the music world now, he's, in the classic rock section.
He's a nostalgia act.
He still puts out albums and does something, but, and I don't mean this to be an insult, but, what was the last big hit he had anywhere? Now he's what we rebel against. Not me, because
he's not leading the revolution.
He was after my time. He was after my time and before my kids' time. So there was no big Smashing Pumpkin, fan here in the house.
I'll say this: he plays a hell of a guitar, though. I saw him live earlier this
year. The guy is
great.
super, super talented, and I don't want this to be misconstrued, because end of the day, he holds a valuable in my opinion. And I've had this conversation with promoters over here. What does the NWA mean in the UK at the moment? With all due respect, nothing.
Yeah.
With all due respect. However, what does it mean to me? It means a hell of a lot, personally. So he holds 3 valuable letters, in my opinion. And I think, obviously, there was a reason Lagana was stepped down from his role, and that's that, okay? And I don't really want to go into that, because I don't really know the ins and outs. But there was a reason why he was gone, and what have you. But I think with Lagana, there was a leash on Billy a bit. I think, no, we can't do that, because if we do X, Y, and Z get completely ruined. I don't think that level of leash is there anymore, and I don't think anything's being reined in. Even with this territorial thing, there's so many championship belts now. I feel like the value of the champ. And tell me if I'm wrong, guys. You can tell me, but I'm kind of lost who's who. Like, if you got 10 matches and they're all for a belt, then how do you build the next challenges? How do you do it with relevance? So I don't know. I'm fearful. Like, one thing, I think there's a level he's held up to because he's got loads of money and he is a multi-millionaire. And when you see some of the production of some of these pay-per-views and shows, you go, oh, like, these rooms look pretty dire. They're not great. Whether there's some crowd, some of them have half decent crowds. You still go, oh, could this been done better? Like, you know, could it been dressed better? Like, could it be brighter? You know, all these things you look at and you go, well, surely he's got all this money. Surely he can do it. But that's because he's held to he's a Smashing Pumpkins, you know, multi-millionaire rock star level. If it was Billy Wood from England, who has a few bob in his pocket, but not as much, I don't think I'd be held to that level. I think people would just respect the growth.
Right.
And I think that's probably the problem he's got right now. So this territorial thing, what's that really going to do? Is it going to dilute the brand now? Because it's become a one. NWA's become a promotion rather than an alliance, hasn't it now?
Yeah.
And now you've got Exodus Pro, which is obviously, problem with that is straight away it's EC3's thing. So you go, okay, right. So you're world champion, you've now got a relationship with. So what happens when that goes sour, or like it has done with previous champions? What happens then? Who's the next? And so the Exodus World Championships are recognized NWA Championship, but you've got a World Championship. So, like, I'm not convinced that this is well thought through. Just not convinced. And that's not me taking a knock, because who the hell am I? I'm Billy Wood, who draws a few hundred people in England. I'm not this rock star who sells out arenas, but I wish.
Well, for his music.
Yeah, well, there you go. You know, I think for me, the challenge would be, all right, Billy, give me the NWA for the UK. Completely have no involvement. I'll do it. Let's see where that ends up.
Well, and I think again, what you're saying, what you've been saying, it's not anything different than what DK and I have said throughout the last 4 or 5 years. And I do want to say this before we move on from the NWA, because I do want to talk about what you're working on now.
Cool.
But there was a point. I mean, there's been a lot of positives with the NWA too.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not all negative, and I do agree with you. Like there at one point was a leash, and that leash has been removed. And this is an entirely Billy vision, Billy Corgan vision. And sometimes I hate it. Sometimes I don't like what I'm seeing on my TV or my pay-per-view, whatever. But sometimes there's a lot of stuff I do enjoy. And there's a lot of, I mean, I could give you 5 things right now that I love about the NWA. I mean, you got this guy Thrill Billy. He's amazing.
Love
you
him.
Got the Pretty Empowered. Amazing. Yeah. Like, I think that he's one thing he has going for him. And I don't know if this is because of his relationship with the with Tom Pritchard, or with his relationship with Joe Kazana Promotions, or whatever, but he's found this way of navigating some pretty solid talent that was unsigned or unknown prior to their time in the NWA. And he's got like half a dozen of these talents who are on his show right now, and people like, that person is great. I love that person. Like Natalia Markova, Carrie Morton. There's a lot of talent on this roster. I know you don't like DK doesn't like Carrie Morton as much as I do, but there's a lot of great talent. And like, at the end of the day, that's Billy's call. At the end of the day, putting the belt on EC3 was a Billy call. Putting the belt on Tyrus was a Billy call. So, I mean, the good and the bad, there is a little bit of balance there, but by and large, like, I still enjoy watching the program for the most part.
Yeah.
For the most part,
Probably
there
because
are
of the talent.
yeah,
You're right. The talent is great, and I think the talent from the start, from NWA Power from the beginning, has obviously it was stacked. You look at it in retrospectively, and it's stacked, right? If you look at those first 2 years, and you go, oh, look where Eli Drake is now, or and you kind of go, oh wow, like even the 10 pounds of gold series, like.
Yeah.
When Tim Storm became the NWA Worlds Champion, and Tim's a lovely guy, right? I thought, oh my god, what an embarrassment. That's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
Genuinely. When I got to when that 10 pounds of gold series started, and it gave us more about Tim. Oh my god, like it changed everything about my feeling on Tim Storm, right? And wanted me to root for this guy more than anything.
Yeah.
And then when they did the National Treasure stuff with Nick Aldis, like whether you like Nick or not, the stuff that he did and traveling with the championship and bringing back bringing it to its glory and all those sort of things, it was great. Did it run too long? Maybe, but at the same time, those things, they're the things that I think are lacking now. Is there's some very good talent on there, but I don't think the depth of storytelling is there at the moment. I don't think there's enough. I think if it was focused more on that than trying to shock us or overload us with it feels like it's just throw shit at the wall. Let's see what sticks. If it was less that and it was a bit more, okay, these are our 5 amazing talents. Let's really, really work the weekly show around them. Whether they're working that week of Power or not, they're on it. They're on it. We're seeing a vignette. We're seeing an interview. We're seeing something else. We're seeing something more that's going to keep pushing the narrative forward. I feel like there's not enough of that.
Now, Mr. Wood, to distinguish you from the other one, other guy, they have a 20-year plan, which they're about 6 years into. But they have a 20-year plan, and I'm sure that somewhere on that 20-year plan it said, things like reintroduce the territory systems, and I'm sure it had things. It had who they were supposed to focus on, stuff like that. Because I've been told, I told by Dave Marquez that even though it looks like the show is shot without a plan, that they had one. So I just want to make that very clear. There's a 20-year plan that's in there, that's in place. The fact that I say you cannot have a 20-year plan in any way, shape, or form, because a plan is set of steps to do this, 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 and this. You can have a 20-year vision, you can have 20-year goals. You can't have a 20-year plan. But no, they have argued with me and told me there was a 20-year plan. That was the right word to use. So I just want to make that clear to all the NWA fans out there. There's a 20-year plan that they're 6 years into.
I can't see that because the variables of life and circumstances in the world change so quickly. Where we are now to where we were 6 years ago,
right?
We're in a different world, completely different world. Us talking on video calls is more prevalent now, and actually communicating via whether going to a meeting, if I want to go and speak to talent or I want to sell a deal, I'm talking on a video call now. I'm not going to an office to shake hands. Like everything's done more digitally now. Okay. So things like that, you figure, okay, so how do people consume things? 6 years ago, okay, YouTube, right? Okay, YouTube long form content. Is that still the way forward? Well, yeah, it is for traditionals because people still want to consume wrestling in a half hour, 45-minute hour slot, or for a pay-per-view, 3 hours, or going to a live show and watching 7 matches. You still want to consume wrestling in those ways.
Right.
But now we have new audiences. So this is what I didn't like about that cocaine spot, is because what will happen is they'll be clipped into 10 seconds. They'll be all over TikTok. They'll be all over X. They'll be all over all those things. And on those things, people will be talking about the NWA, about it being cool to take drugs, right? And that'll be the clip, not someone pinning a world champion to become world champion, or that'll be what the NWA will be considered and be talked about for now, right? For this hot 2 days, right? And that's because the world's changing all the time. People want short form content, YouTube Shorts. Constantly they tell me, because I'm uploading a lot of my archive now, and they go, you need to do shorts, you need to do shorts, you need to do shorts. And I'm like, I love to, but I'm crap at it. So can someone do it for me? Because I don't know. And that's because the world's constantly moving, and we as individuals can have plans of where we want to go, like I did with the NWA. Hey, we want to do X, Y, and Z, but it had to be fluid. It couldn't be, no, this is what I wrote 3 years ago, so this is what we're doing. And I don't care that we're drawing half the numbers that we thought we would draw. I'm still doing it because this is what I wrote down 3 years ago. Not going to happen.
And it's it's kind of funny because you brought up the whole the cocaine thing, and I was looking right now to see if I could maybe, oh, here it is. So somebody not associated with the NWA uploaded that bit, and it's had 5.9 thousand people watch it. And if you look at some of the content that the NWA produces, that's about mid-range. That's not like the most viewed content, but it's certainly higher than some of the other stuff. So it's just interesting again, like, that's what people are drawn to. They're, I'm reading the somebody tweeted it right now. It goes, forget everything else I said. Maybe the NWA is cool. And that's just, that's one person's perspective. But it's like, that's what people are going to think now when they think about your product. And if that's, are you sure that's what you want it to be, But to wrap up my part about the NWA, if it ever comes there where it's a meeting of the Billies and you do get some sort of license in the UK, please bring back this belt.
Oh, look at that. You didn't tell me you had that.
It was a gift from a friend who bought a replica, who actually is good friends with Drew Onyx. And then he decided to buy an actual really made belt and sent me the replica. And it's my second favorite NWA belt. It's my third favorite NWA belt, with the 10 pounds of gold being number one over here.
100%.
Team title. But this one has a soft spot in my heart because for the longest time, that belt was, believe it or not, featured in Southern California, part of Dave Marquez's stuff. So it's always been one of my favorites.
No, it's a great championship.
It's a good looking belt.
I think with Billy Corgan, the thing for me is, this isn't me ranting about him or saying, hey, you're wrong and I'm right, because I think everyone's entitled to have their vision and imply and do what they need to do regarding their vision, right? So with regards to Billy, he's doing his thing and he's paying the bills, right? You don't hear people, you might, guys, but I've not heard, you don't hear people, being bumped by him financially and stuff. He's doing what he's doing, and credit to him, because I've had some rough times financially with wrestling, where I've had to work out how to finance certain things. And I think he's the man in charge right now. He is the man in charge, and we have to understand that. But I would argue, who's advising at the moment, who's growing the touring business. So Corgan is represented by CAA, one of the biggest Hollywood agencies in the world, right? Why are they not representing the touring business of the NWA? I'd be interested to know why not, because trust me, if I was still at CAA, I'll be speaking to them about that and saying, right, okay, how do we help this touring brand? Because you can do deals like, in the past I've done deals that didn't materialize, but I had offers for AAA in Europe, like other promotions to come over. I was working with Jeff Jarrett on that before he ended up at AEW, but there's all these things that there's money to be had out there in the world, and it's not as simple as just going to mark promoters and go in who just get excited. Oh, I can put this show on for you. I can do this.
Yeah,
not always the way, because go to your regional promoters that are in markets and let them take the risk to put your show on. But actually, to grow a business that's not the way. You need professionals that have the resources to be able to then to carry on pushing you up in the right way. That's my opinion anyway.
So, and that's I really appreciate you being on here tonight and taking time morning for you taking time to talk to us about the NWA. But let's talk about what's going on for you now, because obviously you recently made the announcement you're starting to look for more talent again. The Gen Z championship is back. It looks like things are starting to move again with the IWN, the International Wrestling Network, IPW UK, all of it's starting to come back together again. Let's hear what's going on with the product. Are you? I know you just recently also helped out Impact TNA Wrestling. Some of their dates in the UK. Was that part of you getting back into it, or was this already something that was
No. So long story short, I blame Pivot Share for the reason I'm back. So Pivot Share kind of went down. We had an on-demand service on there for IPW. So I purchased IPW in 2017. Unfortunately, in 2018, after my purchase of IPW, the previous promoter was outed for allegations, which anyone can see online, which did affect us. It affected us in the sense that we were growing at a nice rate. However, his allegations were quite serious, and it was always something that we were fighting against. But I was of the mindset that we had to fight against that and push on, because one man doesn't ruin the work of everyone else, in my opinion. They were allegations. He did actually get found guilty of a harassment and what have you. So whatever he's done, that's shame on him, and I don't really talk about him or mention his name, because one, I'm not the one who put him in that situation, and he can hate me all he wants, but he put himself in that situation, not anyone else. There's no one else to blame for that, and people have their opinion on him, and whether he likes that or not, everyone's entitled to their opinion, like he seems to be entitled to opinions of everyone else. So we continued to push on, and we did. But then with the NXT UK happening and AEW happening, a lot of the talent was being snapped up, and it became tough. So I decided to effectively end IPW end of 2019 and put it on a hiatus. We were still earning on-demand money every single month because we had subscribers that were going from the catalogue. Pivot Share decided to shut down, and I was like, well, what am I going to do with all this great content? I can't just let it disappear. So I spoke to a few people that worked with me with IPW, and I said, look, I want to bring it back, but I don't want to bring IPW back. Yes, we can use the International Pro Wrestling banner to do things, but not as a promotion. Like if a show is named International Pro Wrestling, like our TV series was in 2019, then fine. But we need to, we can't come back as that. And it's like, do we come back as Fight Nation? I was like, not really, because that's like going way back, and it feels wrong. But what we had was IWN was actually what we called the on-demand service. So IWN Live was the on-demand thing. So International Wrestling Network was the overarching of the on-demand service and of IPW. So we thought, well, we had the same branding, like the same logo branding for that. Do we just switch it to International Wrestling Network as a promotion name? So that's what we've done. So we're bringing back the championships. There's a new design for the Teflon belt, which we unveiled. The World Championship is exactly the same design, just with the change of the 3 letters on the front, because we still want to recognize and respect the heritage and history of the championship and the champions. And yeah, we decided to make a comeback, which was well received. Our first show sold out, which was great. It's only in a small room, but we're doing that for content purposes at the moment. And yeah, we're building nicely, and it feels good to be back. The whole point is to re-engage the audience and understand it's going to take time, and it's not an easy fix, and it's going to be slow. There's going to be days when you're like, oh, we're not getting much interaction today, but that's fine. It's about that consistency. Showing our YouTube channel now is really starting to kick into gear, and we're dropping matches on there pretty much every day at the moment. But what we're going to do going into next week, we're going to have a schedule where on each day we'll have something every week. So on Mondays we may have a Fight Nation show. We're going to start right at the beginning of Fight Nation and drop a show for the 30 odd shows we've got to upload those as bits. Then we might drop an IPW 2017 show on a Wednesday. Then we might have 3 matches and like a title match Tuesday, and that's all getting scheduled at the moment. But that's going to start kicking in, and over the next couple of weeks, and we'll release the schedule for our YouTube channel, which will hopefully re-engage people. We've got a show end of November where we have qualifiers for our World Championship tournament that will take place in January. Like Mark Haskins is coming back for that. Chris Ridgway, one of our old talents that has gone on to be on Pro Wrestling Noah. He had his Impact debut at the weekend, but he's coming back, which is great. But yeah, we felt we had such a rich library. If you look at WWE and you see Pretty Deadly on there, Stevie Turner on WWE NXT. She was our women's champion as Bobby Tyler. I feel we gave her the platform to really be confident in herself and come out of her shell and get better at what she does, and hopefully that's helped her massively. I turn on Raw now or SmackDown or NXT, and there's always someone from our archive, and it's lovely to see. The Brit invasion is real. That they are everywhere.
Yeah.
AEW, it's great when you've kind of got. Obviously, he's not getting as much TV time, but Kip Sabian being the first guy to come out on an AEW show was a guy that was a Z-Force champion and become an IPW World Champion, and now he's over there and absolutely killing it. And he's always very thankful for what we did for him. Just seeing so many of the guys go off and do things, and it's great. Some of them can come back because NXT UK is not great that it's closed down, but with that, it's gave an opportunity for independence to reignite in the UK. But it just felt right to come back, and I've got the fire in my belly. I think having the break away was smart. I think I learned a lot of lessons, good and bad. I learned that sometimes I do like to run before I walk. I've learned that compensating because things aren't going so well with doubling down isn't the best thing to do. Understanding your position and being brave enough to go, well, this isn't working, we need to slow down and do this, or but being consistent. Not me one day going, well, we're going to be a serious wrestling promotion today, and then in 4 weeks' time we're going to have a comedy actor from a TV show come out next week. Oh, and then do you know what? That's not really working for me. So we're going to be a women's only promotion. Or that's not really working for me. So we're going to go hardcore. Like, no, we need to be consistent. International Wrestling Network is what it is. It's wrestling, and there will be a variety of wrestling you'll see. But the idea is that we want to present the absolute best of today and tomorrow on our shows, and hopefully you see the growth, the rebirth of what we're doing.
Another question for you, because you do have some ties to American promotions. Obviously, Dave Marquez, United Wrestling Network, some of your past relationships with some of the promotions in formerly of the NWA. I mean, even at one point, you were hoping to bring the Fight Nation to New York City. Will there ever be any thoughts of crossing that Atlantic, or are you strictly going to stay in the United Kingdom? Are you strictly going to stay in one specific area, or are you looking to tour again? I guess that's a two-part question.
So, yes, we did bring IPW to New York for WrestleMania weekend. It was the biggest mistake I made. A hell of a lot of money, and I'm not embarrassed to say, because mistakes are what make us better, but I lost my ass on that show, and it probably was the the catalyst for me stopping, if I'm honest. So I think with what we're doing, you know, in the past I've done stuff with ZCW, probably not as relevant anymore. Bad to say, and because another brand that could be done with a kick up the arse, and I've actually got all the time in the world for those guys. So I won't say a bad word about them, but hey, you know, it is what it is. With regards to what DJ's doing there, but I think for us, slowly, I just did the Impact tour, so I was the quote unquote for the English shows. We were the promoter for those shows. We facilitated all their ticket sales and worked with them on that and how the shows ran and what have you. And I've garnered a very good relationship with the guys at Impact, with Scott. So Scott, obviously, we did stuff with Austin Aries back in the day. You know, we were part of the belt collector narrative with the IPW World Championship, and to be fair to Scott, Anthem and Impact back then did great with IPW. We did the Fight Network television series and stuff, so we've got a good relationship with them, and that will continue. Whether that's me individually doing stuff with them, whether that's IWN and Impact, well, TNA now doing stuff in 2024, potentially. I think they dipped their toe back in the international market. I think they realised that having a touring professional decided upon has massively helped, because there was a lot of issues, if I'm going to pull the curtain back. And we've highlighted those and hope to make future international touring, because TNA and IWN, they're on completely different spectrums. It's very similar to like with Scott D'Amore with Border City and TNA. It's different, right? You know, Border City still exists while Scott's the president of TNA, and I think if I end up doing anything further with TNA, it won't be to the detriment of IWN, but IWN would never be to the detriment or affect TNA. So I think we'll do more stuff with them. I hope so anyway, and we've got some big discussions to have over the next coming weeks on their next moves. But with regards to IWN, and going back to that question, because I've gone around the houses, so please excuse me. I think
it's all good.
Slowly, we're re-engaging the markets that we're successful in, and hope that becomes more markets across the UK first, so we become a bit more of a touring brand. And then, hey, look, if the opportunity comes where we can seed some little things internationally, then great. If we can bring some of the best international talent into the UK, which I'm hoping to do, we've got some big announcements for 2024. I've actually got a call tomorrow with a talent that's never been to the UK, which would be pretty cool. But yeah, no, it's just about doing things the right way and learning from those horrible mistakes, because anyone ignores what they do wrong, more fool them, you know. And I did do things wrong. I got a bit of naivety in certain situations, pride massively affected, but we've all been through COVID. We've all been hit hard. Right? I think that humbles a lot of people, and I think I maybe was humbled in that moment too. And now I feel like I can give my absolute best to the professional wrestling business.
Well, I, for one, am excited about it. You've always been good to us over the years, when you were with the NWA, even when you were not with the NWA. So I'm excited to see what's coming next for you, and I will be certainly tuning in when the program hits on YouTube, of course, and we'll make that we'll put links and stuff up on our site to help promote it when stuff is getting released, because I did enjoy the content that I got to see in those early days. You know, not only what Dave Marquez and you guys produced together, but some of the other stuff outside of what Dave worked on. And I feel like it was a very good product too. So and it all predated that NXT movement, which it's funny because you were like the precursor to what happened in UK. Like you started your promotion, and I'm not saying you were the only guy, because I mean there's a
Yeah.
couple different promotions there, but it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna pay attention what this guy Billy's doing because he's an NWA guy, and I want to see him succeed. And then all of a sudden, all these names that were associated with your brand, now they're in on the NXT the UK NXT tournament. I'm like, that's Billy's guy. The whole time I was like, Mark Haskins, that's a Billy guy. So it's pretty cool.
Look, I never forget. So I'll pull the curtain back a little bit because I think this is quite an interesting one. Oh, thanks.
Real quick, before you say that story, our old pal Pole Jump, right below, is now running a wrestling promotion in Australia.
No way.
Yeah, hey, remember when everyone said, "Hey, Pole Jump, put your money where your mouth is." Dude is doing it and has been running this promotion for I think 6 years now. He'll correct me, I'm sure, but yeah, just I wanted to point that out to you because I know
cool.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He should reach out. Reach out to me, my man. We'll put my email address up and reach out. It'd be good to hear from him and see what he's doing down there. But yeah, so pulling the curtain back a bit. So with NXT UK really hitting the ground, I had my big anniversary show and I had some big names on there. British Strong Style, Pete Dunne, Trent Seven, Tyler Bate.
Right.
Xia Brookside was my women's champion at the time. Dave Mastiff just signed to NXT. Like a few guys that have signed were considered IPW guys too. Some of them not so much. Some are just there for the name value. And it's our big anniversary show. 2-day event. We've got first night, Kip Sabian versus Doug Williams for the IPW World Championship. Night 2, Doug Williams versus Marufuji in the final encounter because Doug was meant to retire that year. So a really big weekend for us. And we've gone live for the anniversary part, the first show, which was a 2-part Super 8 tournament. Going to crown a #1 contender, all this sort of stuff, right? Then some of these guys, and I'm not going to mention names because it's not fair, and they were probably under pressure to do it, were like, oh, we can't be filmed. I was like, well, what do you mean? Whoa, what do you mean you can't? No, and it was that sort of thing that started to kind of pissed me off. And it wasn't the individuals because they were obviously under contracts and what have you, but it just felt not just me, Progress, who obviously end up signing the WWE deal, but Rev Pro, Andy Quilden, who's #1 in the UK right now, by far, right? Rev Pro is #1. There's no denying it because he has been the most consistent. That's why he's #1, because he loves professional wrestling. He's been consistent. He when he's got frustrated or bored or worried, he persevered through. I didn't have the guts that he has, so credit to him for being where he is and doing arenas with New Japan and his own promotion. Like Rev Pro did the Copper Box the day before All In and did 4,500 people. So credit to him. But all these talents were kind of built on these shows. And then, hold on, we what do you mean we can't? We have to pretend they're not here. So look, there was some stern words, but respect from all parties, and we did film, but and we did go out live, and that was the beginning for me thinking, right, backs against the wall here. We're in. There could be trouble coming. And it was then, right, we're going to build our own guys, and we did. And then AEW came and Kip went. So, unfortunately, I lost. And it was quite tough because I lost a lot of to my audience that brought tickets. I lost the draws. So I overcompensated and was trying to bring in Ring of Honor talent or ex-WWE talent, which pushed my costs up. And the cost versus were really poor. And yeah, it did. It affected me financially to the point that I just didn't feel like I could continue. And I regret that in a way. Maybe I should have just gone, well, we can continue, but we're going to scale it down. But again, ego and pride, I felt at the time, probably I would not have been happy cutting production budgets and cutting talent budgets and stuff, because I felt I owed the audience who were paying a premium, because we were not a cheap ticket. There's some promotions out there were a lot cheaper than us. We were a premium ticket of the time. So it was one of those things where I just felt we had to deliver, and probably by feeling that way, we didn't deliver, and that's my biggest regret in wrestling. Really, is allowing the situation to get the better of me.
So when the next show hits and everything starts to come to fruition, you want to come back on and talk about it?
100%. So just to give everyone an idea, so if everyone wants to right now on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com you have to do a little @ International Wrestling Network. There's loads of content up there you can check out. There's loads of it. There is a show up there called IWN Force Live. It is.
Oh, I spelled it wrong.
Oh God,
I'll do it again.
So it's our last show at the a venue I own actually in Hastings. So we're basing it in there in a really small, tight environment to just get things right. So you can watch that show. It's up there. It's available right now. We've got a show back there on the 24th of November. The idea is that we actually are going to live edit the show, so it'll be available straight away after the show to view in its entirety for free on YouTube, because I do think YouTube is please guys, subscribe to it, let people know, because we are back and we want to be back in a big way. But yeah, we will continue to put out stuff. Next year, we had a venue called Unit 9 in Milton Keynes, which was massive for us, and it was our monthly home where we had Will Ospreay versus Pete Dunne, the first WWE. It was the first time since 1993 to 2017. So in 25, it was a 25-year period. The first time a WWE champion, a current WWE champion, as the current New Japan champion. Wow. So we had that. I've never released that footage, and the reason why I've not released it is because WWE and New Japan, like, who's going to have it? So I actually offered it to both companies for free. New Japan wanted it. Regal told me Hunter wasn't interested. But okay, fine. And I didn't want payment for it. I was willing to put it up on their networks and just put it out there. But yeah, so that footage is sat there, not seen, because at the time, with them both contracted to both companies, I felt obliged not to release the footage because they were both champions. But hey, look, it's been what, 6 years? Surely I can release it now. So maybe that will go up there. I don't know. So we'll see. But for me, it's great content. We're going to have regular content. The history's there. The TV series is already up there, and you can have a look at that. We're going to, like I say, put the new shows up there, and I'm going to build the YouTube up. Look, right now we need eyeballs on the product. There's no point me putting it behind paywalls. There's no point me asking for any of that. We've got 16,000 Instagram followers. Yes, we've got similar on Facebook. We've had to start our Twitter X from absolutely zero. So it's horrible. We had nearly 40,000 followers. Now we've got 250. It's painful. So anyone who wants to help with that, please follow us on X as well. IWN_UK. So please give us a follow. But if you look at the content we're producing, and also the style of our graphics and stuff, we're putting a lot of effort into it. We've got a great team, and yeah, I'm really infused again, and I feel like I'm not just back in just for the sake of it. I'm back really producing where I believe professional wrestling in the UK should be, and hopefully that connects across the world.
That's real exciting stuff, and I think I can speak for everyone here that we're excited about what's coming. A couple guys in the chat have already said that they subbed to the channel. I'll be doing that after we get off here. I'm excited about it. especially because I know you got one of those Nick Aldis matches with the 10 pounds of gold. So a lot of
Two.
folks you got two of them. See,
yeah, there you go, too.
so and those are never seen before matches either, because when they did the 10 pounds of gold, those weren't released. So
I know, yeah, which is pretty annoying because they filmed loads of footage. They must just not like the venue, but
Lagana, he was very particular about how he did things.
Oh yeah, well, we got a good deal. They looked. To the NWA's credit, whenever I did business with the NWA, they always looked after me. They always looked after me they never took the mickey, like with costings or anything. I was always well looked after, and I feel like we treat the belt with so much respect as well. And I'm always going to do that. The NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship is for me, it's the biggest prize in pro wrestling. It's the symbol of pro wrestling. When I heard that they might change the belt, I think I am.
I died a little bit on the inside.
I think I had a bit of heartburn that day.
Yeah.
It hurt to hear that they might change things. But then saying that, here's a little bit of insight, actually, a little tidbit as well to give away. So when I was involved, it was the 69th year of the NWA. I think we were about to go into the 70th year.
Yeah.
And we actually commissioned an NWA. You may have seen it online. I'm not sure if any was sold. An NWA Big Gold. Did any of you ever see that?
I've heard of them. I haven't seen.
Yeah, so we Pete Ellis. We had them made. We had an NWA Big Gold made, and the idea was for 1 year only to have the NWA champion carry the big gold, which I think would have been really, really controversial. But the idea would have been to have both the big gold and the dome globe as like a double. But yeah,
Billy, I love you, man, but I hate that so much. I'm a 10 pounds of gold guy.
Same. But we, for 1 year, that's it. There you go. Look at that. That's the one. That's the one we commissioned.
Look, I'm not saying it's not pretty, but that's the grandpa
pretty.
right there. That's everything.
I'm not PK. I'm not sure how many of those are in existence.
I got number 2.
Really?
Wow.
That sounds like a good get. Well, we're not going to keep you up any later. Thank you so much for your time. And like I said, I would love to have you come back on maybe in 2024, and we could talk some more. Look at the champ right there. Maybe we can talk some more in 2024 about what's happening and what's going on. And who knows, maybe, I'm not saying anything, but maybe EC3 with the 10 pounds of gold makes his way to the UK at some point.
Hey, you never know. But look, if those guys ever want any advice over here, look, my door's open. Obviously, I'm not going to be the first thought of their mind, but there's a reason we do what we do. Oh, by the way, I love that belt. I need to get myself one of those. All these things that I did, and I haven't even got one.
Not my fault.
Oh no, it's my fault. I should have been part of the bloody deal. So look, I love to come back, be part of things, and thank you, Sam. Thank you. Anything you guys need from me, I love to. And the NWA is always going to have a special place in my heart. And yes, I failed with my $70,000 offer to buy the NWA, end of 2016. But if they want any help internationally, they know where I am. Will it sell tickets internationally as it stands? Probably not. But can we help? Absolutely.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there because at some point I'm supposed to go to Scotland at some point, and I'm hoping that maybe there's a show going on that week that maybe I can sneak over to
100%. You tell me when, and we'll organise it to make it make sense.
Beautiful. See, look at that. Just
hey, look, I
on
own the venue, so I can just see you later, Rock Band. You're out. In comes the wrestling.
That sounds amazing.
Great guys in town.
All right, Billy. Well, you're a good dude, and I'm so happy that you were able to jump on with us, and we got to talk about so much cool stuff. And like I said, 2024 we'll do it again for sure.
No, thanks, guys. It's 2 a.m. here now. Well, it's coming up to 2 a.m. I'm ready for bed, but thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You have a good night, sir.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Boy, you talk a lot.
Well, he had a lot of good things to say.
Well, yeah, he had good things to say, but you talk a lot.
Oh, you said I talk a lot. I'm sorry. I think we should probably end it right there, DK. I know you wanted to talk about the pay-per-view.
Not anymore, I don't.
We'll call that a day. Hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Alliance Guys podcast. We love talking NWA, obviously. Billy Wood, with such history with the NWA, you guys heard it here. If you missed any part of the show, of course, you can always go back and listen to it again. I will be putting this episode up on our Spotify as well. If you want to just listen to the show later, you can absolutely do that. And we'll be back next week. This Tuesday, me and Jeremiah Plunkett are going to host the pre-party, right before the, I guess, new episode of Power, maybe. And then, of course, the other Alliance Guys on Wednesdays, and DK and I will be back on Thursday of next week to talk more NWA. Anything else you want to say, DK?
Don't do coke. It's bad.
Don't do coke. I think that we can all agree on that one. And until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. for NWA Power. You can find us on social media at the Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are